I grew up
Did
in,
it
okay.
ever play a part in the choosing agriculture?
That's what I'm talking about, the extension. I was involved with 4-H and all of that type of stuff that got me involved. Yeah, I can talk about that then.
All right,
He gonna have to.
edit that.
Okay then, appreciate it.
All right, so who are you, where you from? Explain your background in agriculture from your childhood thing.
Okay. Well, good morning. How you doing this morning? My name is Ben Malone. I am the State Conservationist for the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. I was born and raised in a small town in southwest Alabama called Monroeville, Alabama. Grew up, Monroe was kind of rural area. My granddaddy farmed, had a bunch of relatives that farmed outside of Monroe in a little town called Uri. And just kind of grew up assisting them on the farm, assisting neighbors on the farm, that neighbors around the neighborhood that were growing truck crops, pretty much helping them pick the crops. And I guess as a young kid, I got involved in 4-H. I was working in, I was following my local county agent around, and he asked me to actually go into a competition in public speaking. So I was real young. I decided I would just put something together and just do a little local competition on public speaking, and ended up winning the county competition and having to go to an area competition down at the University of South Alabama. Ended up winning it and then having to go to the state competition in Auburn. So from doing that, and you would say public speaking is really not ag-related, but it's actually some soft skills that really have helped me, later on in life. But from that, I ended up competing in tractor driving, compact tractor driving competition. We had a competition called Chicken Q, where it pretty much teaches you how to, pretty much grill, barbecue, and things of that nature. But we had, and also did dairy judging with 4-H. But what led me, I guess the linchpin that led me to agriculture was we did forestry judging one year. And they brought in some local foresters from the Monroe area to kind of assist us in the training. And we spent time with them that summer. We kind of shadowed them a little bit that summer. And I just said, hey, they're outside all the time. They have the four-wheelers and the four-wheel drive pickups, and they're just pretty much kind of by themselves working in the woods, and it just seemed fun to me because I grew up in rural Alabama and I just wanted to be kind of an outdoors type person. Yeah, how I grew up. So as I was in high school trying to decide on the career fields, my parents were kind of edging me more toward like engineering and some of those hot things that were going on at that time. But I decided, I think I might try to go for this forestry thing, and I knew Auburn University, Tuskegee University had a 3-2 program, and then Alabama A&M University was kind of more getting started in the forestry program. And as usual, applied for scholarships, things of that nature. Tuskegee gave me a little partial scholarship, but I knew how much the other piece was going to cost, and I said, and then Alabama A&M ended up giving me a full scholarship in forestry. So I decided to go to Alabama A&M University.
Now, why they gave you a full ride based on your academic?
Academic scholarship, actually.
How important, 9th through 12th, how important is it to pay attention to making good grades? It
is very important. Actually, I have a 9th grader now, Jamal, and I'm on him all of the time, just on that. Now he loves the sports. I did too. He thinks he can make it on the sports, but hey, the academic piece is the most important piece, as always. I was probably not as, my mom would tell you, I was not as focused as I probably should have been. I probably could have had better grades coming out of, probably could have got that full scholarship at Tuskegee if I had really, asserted myself during that time. But they were fair grades, and also I would tell people also prepping for those standardized tests, ACT or SAT, whatever you're taking in your schools. Start early, 9th grade, start taking prep courses and just try to get that ACT score up. Take it as many times as you can bear. It's a tough test, but try to get those scores up to where they can help you later on as far as getting some financial assistance through a scholarship at a university.
You got the A&M, after you got the financial or full scholarship, right?
Yes.
All right.
Okay, and when I got to A&M, first year is kind of generalized courses for the most part. I did take one course that was in my major, that was Introduction to Forestry. The U.S. Forest Service came to the campus, and they were kind of recruiting students to work for what they call co-op work. Well, internships and co-op. Well, along with that, they were offering scholarships, USDA Forest Service scholarships. So I ended up applying for one of those. I think it was my second semester freshman year. They came back that sophomore year, and actually I ended up getting one. I started out working in upstate New York, a little town called Plattsburgh, New York. That first, I was a freshman. That summer after I was a freshman, I worked in upstate New York. Came back, school, like you said, at Alabama A&M. Following summer, I ended up going to the state of Maine. Worked in Maine for 6 months. I took the whole first semester off of that following year. And then I came back and worked in, I think it was a little bit, not as far north New York, but it was called the Catskill Mountains of New York, the third summer. So I got a lot of experience in doing that, and I tell people that are in college, have something on your resume by the time you get out of college. Don't graduate and not have any type of work experience in the career field you want to go into. Please try to get an internship in that career field, or co-op in that career field, or something that you can put on your resume that will just look attractive to that hiring or selecting official that's going to try to hire you. That was real beneficial. Another thing that was beneficial to me, and we were talking about going to an HBCU, had smaller classes. I had a lot of one-on-one interaction with my professors, and I also had good career placement center. They would really sit you down and drill you on how to interview for jobs, how to dress, how to do all these things. And it really was important, really helped me later on in life as far as those life skills that you need to really impress that hiring selecting official to try to get on and get a career. So
after you graduated,
so after I graduated,
what happened? What did you apply for?
okay, I didn't have to apply for anything. I had the scholarship with the U.S. Forest Service. That guaranteed that every year that they paid for my education, which was my sophomore year through senior, 3 years, I had to work for them at least 3 years. Yeah. So I started in Vermont, if you can believe that, St. Johnsbury, Vermont. I left Alabama. Yeah, man. Look, culture shock. Left Alabama A&M in May. Huntsville, Alabama in May. It was 80 degrees now, normal Alabama hot weather. Got to Vermont, snow on the ground, freezing, I'm trying to find an apartment, things like that. Found an apartment. I asked my landlord, I said, how are your summers up here? He said, well, Mr. Malone, I believe last year our summer fell on a Wednesday. That's how short it was. They're saying the summer was just on one day of the week. So I ended up working there for a couple of years with the U.S. Forest Service, and I was at home. I come home for the holidays down in Monroeville. Went by to see my old county agent, and the USDA NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation person, was in his office. They were just in there talking. So he was asking me, how are things going with the Forest Service? How are you liking Vermont? Blah, blah, blah. And the other guy, the Natural Resources Conservation Service guy, said, well, Ben, you ever thought about working with NRCS? I said, well, I have a forestry major, and I feel like Forest Service is kind of where I fit. And he said, well, you can have a forestry major and also work with us. It's just about the courses you take and if you qualify and blah, blah. So he said, well, just send me your transcript and I'll look at it, and then I'll let you know if we have any positions coming open in the state of Alabama. So I did that, and next thing you know, he called me and said, well, we're going to have a position open in Mobile, and I think he named a couple other areas in the state. You can come on as a soil conservation, but you need to apply for it. And I did, and I applied for it, and I was fortunate enough to get one of those positions, was able to come out of the New England area and get back to kind of my roots, moved to Mobile, Alabama, 90 miles south of my hometown, and then started my training with the Natural Resources Conservation Service. I started there as a soil conservationist, worked there about a year. I moved up to Jasper, Alabama as a soil conservationist, worked there for about 6 months, and then the supervisor of the district conservationist, she resigned to go do some other endeavors. And I didn't think I was ready, think you still kind of green, still kind of young to maybe apply for that type of position, because it's a lot of responsibility and supervision and things of that nature, and I'm still kind of green to everything. But the hiring official thought I was ready, and he kind of, pretty much strong-armed me to take that position, and I did. And I felt like, you're nervous when you take those positions, especially when you don't think you have the experience. So I was working 7 days. I didn't need to work on weekends, but just to stay on top of things, I would come in and on 3 hours on a Saturday, after church on a Sunday, come in just to make sure I was on top of everything and making sure things were right. Worked there for about 2.5, 3 years in Jasper as a district conservationist. Left there and worked in Mobile, took another position back in Mobile as that district conservationist. Stayed there for about 2 or 3 years, and then I ended up moving to Louisiana in a position called Resource Conservation and Development. I was kind of a coordinator over about 14 parishes, really trying to help with community development, a lot of partnering, working with, did a lot of work with Southern University and LSU on business development, just partnering, trying to just help folks be successful on their farms, and not just their farms, their small businesses, all those things. So did that for a few years. And Hurricane Katrina hit when I was there, and we have a little emergency piece within our agency. So I got shifted from that resource conservation development position to strictly working on hurricane recovery for Hurricane Katrina. It really devastated that whole area that I was working in. So I worked on that for about 2 years, just strictly. We have a responsibility on, at the time, the biggest thing was debris removal out of streams and creeks. A lot of debris, trees, houses, anything clogging up the streams, causing a lot of flooding and that thing. So we were doing a lot of contract work to get all that debris out of those areas, and there was a lot of it in southeast Louisiana. So I left, let's see, the hurricane hit in 2005. I left in 2008, and I think that's 3 years, and they were still working on it. It probably took 5 years total for them to do a 100% cleanup on Katrina, just with all the stuff that was going on with Hurricane Katrina down there. That's how devastating it was. But in 2008, I actually was able to apply for a management position back over here in Alabama as a central assistant state conservationist for field operations. I was overseeing 18 counties. And pretty much had to administer farm bill programs with local landowners in those 18 counties. And I worked there from 2008 to 2015, and I was fortunate enough to apply for this position as a state conservationist. And I was able to get this position, and I'm now located in Auburn, and I have the whole state, and pretty much we administer technical and financial assistance to our landowners across the state. We have a numerous amount of programs that we administer, and our biggest focus is conservation. If you have problems out there on your land, we call it resource concerns. You have erosion issues, you have watering needs and things of that nature. We have programs that can assist these landowners in getting a water facility with pipeline and watering troughs for their cattle, or erosion type practices like terraces or diversions to keep the soil on the ground. We don't want the soil in the waterways. We want the soil to stay in place. So we do a lot of work on that. Yeah, well, I'll tell you, we run into that too, even with our agency and with a lot of these different agencies. And I speak on it all the time, Jamal. I try to tell the students that, hey, you want to get your foot in the door with that particular agency. If there's a job available for you out of college, do not take it because it's not in the geographical region that you want to be in. Take that position. And ultimately, don't get me wrong, it may be a culture shock. It was a culture shock for me in Vermont. It's culture shock on weather, culture shock on people, culture shock on what they do. They don't speak like we do in the South. We speak to everybody. You speak to them, they're looking like, why are they speaking to me? So it's just culture shock. Endure that. Look, you can endure anything coming out of a college. You've gone through a lot of diverse things at that university. You've dealt with some hard classes, some hard professors. You all don't get along with everybody. So just life. You're 22, 23 years old on the average graduating from college. You've lived life for that amount of time. So adjusting is just that, adjusting. You just have to, you have to be pliable. You need to be pliable, and you need to do that. And always think in your mind that this is, it's your plan for it to be short term, but go impress, do your job, and then cherry pick. At some point you'll be able to cherry pick your way to where you want to be geographically. It happened to me. I went in there and, I was there and froze my butt off for 2 years up in Vermont, being from a South Alabama kid to go into 20 below weather, that was big. But, I got through it, and then I was able to cherry pick my way and get back to Alabama. It was fortunate. I'm back in my home state. I love working with all the landowners across the state. It's just, it's just a blessing for me. But the kids, I just tell them, just, don't be so closed-minded on geographical locations. Jump out there, because it also helps you later on in life as far as, I tell people, your experiences of travel, you end up learning so much just through travel alone, right outside of reading books, just traveling, meeting folks from other cultures and other areas. So it's beneficial. You may not think it is, but it is beneficial in the long term, especially when you start getting more and more upward in your career and having to deal with people as far as supervision, personnel, things of that nature. Working with different groups, different cultures, it always helps as far as the long term in your career.